Hello everybody, welcome back to me with another brand new video, and I'm back here again to discuss the latest development in Jujutsu Kaisen story. So with the previous chapter, Panda informs everyone about Yaga's death. Hakari and Kirura get convinced about Gojo's stealing. Hakari demands they take his side in his fight against the higher-ups, and Fushiguro says it shouldn't be too much of a problem since he is the head of a genin clan. Hakari immediately sucks up to him that genin clan would be destroyed on the day right after. Suddenly, some cursed spirit appears out of nowhere and starts ringing. It announced that a ninth rule was added to the calling game. Players can now verify information about other players, their names, how many points they have, how many times they had added rule, and what colony they are in. The players who added the rule was Kashimo Hajime, who was alive 400 years prior and is searching for Sukuna. He seems mad that everyone he fights against is weak. The Kogane appeared for Itadori following this rule, and Fushiguro thinks it's strange that he is already part of the game. Itadori himself theorized it might be the biggest of Sukuna. Fushiguro isn't totally convinced. They put that aside and Fushiguro decides to make a use of the new rule to find someone else with 100 points who didn't make a change in rule yet, so that they can make up a rule that could help Tsumuki. Fushiguro's idea is to let players give away points of their own free will. That way, people can keep gaining points without fear of their cursed energy being erased by the limit time. He also thought of a rule that says players can spend all their points to leave the game, but is unsure if it will get accepted. And in the end, their plan now is to hunt for the angel sorcerer, Kashimo Hajime, who made the new rule, and Higuruma Hiroshi, the only other player with the 100 points. But before progressing to the review of this latest chapter, if you are still watching and enjoying it, know this, I love you all and appreciate you guys. Please be advised that this video will contain Jujutsu Kaisen manga spoiler, so please proceed with caution and you have been warned. So without any further delay, let's jump to the review. So the chapter 159 starts off with the Higuruma, and we actually leave off from the Yuji and Megumi, and we are going into the little bit of a flashback chapter. It starts off with him talking to a defendant under the name of Oikita. But apparently, Kita, who was out of looking for his cat, had bumped into the police officers who suddenly decided to call out for him. And he thought that if he was caught by the police, his cat will end up dying because he had no pet policy at his house and he was only one who knew about his cat. And the panel shifted into a bit of a narration and explains the police point of view and why they have arrested Keta here. And apparently in the March of 2016 in the Iwate prefecture of the Morioka city, there was an incident where two people, a young girl and her mother, were found stabbed to the death in their home. And while being questioned to the Keta decided to run off and suspecting this man. The cops follow him, arriving at his house and discovering a completely blood-stained knife there. So they arrested him on the spot and do a DNA test on the knife and ended up matching the victim. All of Higuruma's work colleagues try to imply that he is innocent, and he actually just picked it up while he was on his way home, and he gives his explanation on why he has done this. As Higuruma says here, apparently he intended to deliver it to the police later, and he even knows that this sounds extremely unreasonable, but it is because of the Keta's environment. Higuruma begins to think that he is telling the truth after considering the fact of his non-profit organization that he lives and works at. And from here it kind of explains that this non-profit organization that Keta works at and how he doesn't get paid extremely well for what he does there. Also that a lot of the people who are working there have a hectic or quite a decent amount of stuff on their criminal records. So he didn't want to turn the knife immediately because, as Keta says himself, that it would end up causing an incident where police car and ambulance would show up in their house and inconvenience to the neighbors. And the organization that Keta actually worked at apparently like a shady organization, and after the earthquake a whole bunch of a shady organization has been showing up or popping up in the northeastern part of Japan. Higuruma believes wholeheartedly that there is a decent chance that his defendant Keta is actually innocent. When he's talking to his assistant and she says that, "Why do you take all of the difficult cases?" And he says, "I'll get rusty if I only take easy ones." So he probably got like a good moral complex to him, and he's got his own kind of justice. After Higuruma leaves his assistant, she ends up going to her cafe where she chats to one of Higuruma's ex-employers about how he always acts around people and his stoicness for wanting to prove people's innocence. Higuruma's assistant asks if he always has been like this, but his ex-boss explained that he is probably actually getting worse now. When he was working at her place, there was a defendant that was 19 years old, and he was pressured by the people at his workplace and to driving under the influence of alcohol. But the people involved all collaborated their stories, and he couldn't prepare the money to settle it outside of the court, and he also couldn't get a suspended sentence either, which ended up resulting in Higuruma's being abused by his defendant. We find out that Higuruma's only told him that he was going to try and get him a suspended sentence, and didn't tell him anything about being found guilty at the end of the day. And she tells Higuruma that rescuing the weak is noble, and all but the lawyers can only do so much. There's no need to just gain unwarranted resentment for these people. But Higuruma's explained that they have been pushed into the corner both mentally and financially, and he can't blame them for wanting to take out their anger on him. For the conversation with Higuruma and his ex-employer, it goes back to the sentencing room where we find that the defendant that Higuruma is in charge of is not guilty. And he leans back in his chair and kind of says straight away, they are going to appeal this back. In the booth, while he is talking to Keita again, he says the fact that Keita needs to get a hold of himself and still try and act like a part of this, because they still have the second trial coming up. And instantly, as the appeal happens, a second trial begins and a guilty verdict is found, which is the life prison for Keita. And through this guilty verdict, here we find out that this trial from the start was no matter what's going to be found out as a guilty, as they probably wouldn't want to let that 99.9 ratio slip. And the fact that the district attorney at the end of the day has the taxpayer money and the manpower to find any evidence to the kind of do what they want. While Higuruma kind of stand there looking at his defendant who just being sentenced to a life prison. It kind of flashes back to the previous man who was also sentenced to the life in jail, who was saying, "Why do you look at me with those eyes?" And as you can see, Higuruma is standing there staring straight back at Keita. And Higuruma was saying he doesn't want to consider himself a savior. It always been his nature that he is unable to ignore something that he felt was wrong. And he says that that part of him was never fixed. The goddess of justice blinds her eye for equality under the law, and people are capable of turning a blind eye to anything if it's to save their own skin. So here we are given the reveal as Higuruma slammed down his judge's mallet on the table, revealing this massive stand or hollow type curse technique coming out from behind him, which is holding a scale in each hand. And that is the end of this chapter. So what do you guys think about the latest chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen and the review? Please let me know in the comment section down below, which will for sure help me in the future uploads. So that is it for this chapter. If you like our anime reviews and theories videos and you want us to keep it going, just leave a like and comments. It only takes a second, but it actually does help a lot with the YouTube algorithm. But of course, if you are new to this channel and haven't subscribed yet, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications to never miss an upload. We just upload every day and we love to have you in a conversation. If there are any specific topic you are burning up to see, let me know in the comments, and while you wait for me to make that video, feel free to check out my growing playlist. And until next time, thank you again and peace.